Every empire leaves a record. Some records were never meant to be found. This is file No. 002, and this one is different, because this record was found, thousands of pieces of it. We are holding the writing of an entire civilization in our hands, and we cannot read a single word. Picture the great collapses you think you know. Rome burning. Bronze Age palaces sacked. A story always needs a villain. But the largest civilization of the ancient world, larger in territory than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, left no burning palaces, no monument to a conqueror, no mass grave of the vanquished. It left clean streets, sealed granaries, and silence. The official account for nearly a century blamed an invasion. The record does not support it. So what actually happened here? Let's establish the coordinates. Not ancient India, a precise place and time, the floodplains of the Indus River and a second now-vanished river system to its east, across what is today Pakistan and northwestern India. The mature phase of this civilization ran from roughly 2600 to 1900 before the Common Era. Archaeologists call it the Harappan civilization, after the first city excavated, Harappa. Its greatest city we call Mohenjo-daro, a later name meaning, grimly, the mound of the dead. These were not villages, these were engineered cities, streets laid on a grid, oriented to the compass, baked brick houses built to standardized brick proportions across hundreds of kilometers. And beneath those streets, this is the detail that stops archaeologists cold: covered drains. Municipal sanitation. Many homes had private bathing platforms and waste chutes feeding a public sewer network. No other civilization on Earth would match this plumbing for thousands of years. Walk those streets around 2500 BCE. The air smells of river silt, wood smoke, and drying cotton, because these people were among the earliest to spin and weave cotton. In the markets, a merchant weighs goods on a scale using small polished cubes of chert. And here is what those weights tell us. They follow a single, standardized system used consistently from the coast to the mountains. A civilization spanning perhaps 1 million square kilometers agreed on exactly what one unit of weight was. That is not an accident. That is administration. Their trade reached the palaces of Mesopotamia. Mesopotamian records speak of a distant land they called Meluha, which most scholars identify with the Indus region. Carnelian beads and Indus-style seals turn up in the graves of Sumer. This was a connected, prosperous, literate world at its peak. Literate, hold on to that word. We'll return to it, and it will not mean what you expect. Now, the collapse. For most of the 20th century, the official account had a clear culprit. Around 1900 BCE, the city's decline, and in the 1940s, the archaeologist Mortimer Wheeler examined groups of skeletons found at Mohenjo-daro and delivered a verdict that would echo for generations. He pointed to an ancient people known from later religious texts, the Indo-Aryans, and their war god Indra, the fort destroyer. Wheeler's words were, "Indra stands accused." The story wrote itself. Fair-skinned invaders sweep down from the north, sack the cities, massacre the inhabitants. Civilization ends by the sword. There is one problem: the evidence never actually said that. Look again at those skeletons. Later analysis showed they did not belong to a single moment of slaughter. They came from different periods, different layers of the site, some post-dating the city's decline entirely, not a massacre, but ordinary deaths across time. The cities show no burn layers of conquest, no defensive last stands, no invaders' weapons littering the streets. The invasion was read into the record, not out of it, a theory shaped, many historians now argue, by the racial assumptions of the colonial era in which it was written. Today, the scholarly consensus is firm. There was no violent Aryan invasion that destroyed these cities. Movements of Indo-Aryan-speaking peoples into the region are a real and separate question, but they appear to have been gradual and largely later than the urban decline. They did not knock down the walls. The walls were already being abandoned. So if not a conqueror, then what emptied the greatest cities of the Bronze Age? Cross out the villain. Look at the ground itself. Around 2200 to 1900 BCE, a broad climatic shift affected much of the northern hemisphere, a weakening of the summer monsoon rains that fed this entire agricultural system. Less rain, weaker floods. Harvests under pressure, year after year, generation after generation. Not a single catastrophe, a slow tightening. And then there is the second river. East of the Indus runs a mostly dry channel today, the Ghaggar-Hakra. Along its ancient bed sit a striking number of Harappan sites, far more, by some counts, than along the Indus itself. So what happened to the river that watered them? Recent geological research tells a subtle story. This eastern river system appears to have once been fed by great Himalayan rivers, but those tributaries shifted course, avulsing away, well before or early in the Harappan period. What remained was a river increasingly dependent on the very monsoon that was now failing. A stable, predictable river that slowly, over centuries, ran thin. For a civilization built on floodplain farming, that is not a war. It is something quieter, and in some ways worse. Here is the revelation the record actually supports. The Indus cities did not fall. They dissolved. As the water grew unreliable, people did the rational thing. They left. Not in a single exodus, but as a drift over generations, toward the east and toward smaller settlements where rain-fed farming still worked. Archaeologists call this phase the late Harappan, and its signature is not destruction, it is simplification. The grand civic maintenance stops, the standardized weights and the long-distance trade fade. The great seals cease to be made. The cities are not sacked, they are let go. The population disperses into villages, carrying fragments of the old culture into a new, humbler life. This is a collapse with no corpse. An empire that walked away from its own capitals. And now, that word, literate. This civilization wrote, on thousands of small seals, tablets, and objects, it left behind a script, rows of intricate signs, often paired with beautifully carved animals. We have thousands of these inscribed pieces. We have the writing of an entire people, physically in our museums right now. We cannot read it. The Indus script remains undeciphered. Every inscription we have is short, most only a handful of signs. We have no bilingual key, no Rosetta Stone pairing it with a language we know. Scholars cannot even fully agree on what it is. Most believe it encodes a real language, possibly an early Dravidian one, while a minority argues it may not be full writing at all, but a system of symbols. We do not securely know their language, the names of their rulers, or what they called themselves. Think about what that means for this case. Every other lost civilization can, in some fragment, testify. Egypt speaks through hieroglyphs. Sumer speaks through cuneiform. The Indus wrote, and then the door closed. The one witness who could tell us why the cities emptied is sitting in the evidence room, holding a signed statement we are physically unable to open. So let's be precise about what we know and what we don't. We know these were among the most advanced cities of their age. We know they were not destroyed by an invading army. That story belongs to the century that invented it, not to the ground. The strongest reading of the record is environmental. A fading monsoon and shifting rivers that made great cities slowly untenable, and their people made a quiet collective decision to disperse. Some of this remains debated, including the identity and history of that eastern river, a question that has picked up modern political weight and which we treat here only as the geologists frame it. But the thing that makes this case singular is not the how of the collapse, it is the silence after it. We are the first civilization with the tools to stand inside their cities, hold their words, and map their rivers to the meter. And we still cannot hear them. Not because the record was lost, because the record survived, intact and locked. A civilization did not vanish with a scream. It vanished mid-sentence. The record remains. Draw your own conclusions. This was File No. 002. The archive stays open. If you want to know why that writing has defeated every scholar, every codebreaker, every machine for 100 years, that's a different kind of case. That one isn't in the Collapse series. That one opens our next file, Decoded. Subscribe and the archive will call you when it's ready.